Is this another thing that happens during a midlife crisis? You lose track of time. You forget. Yesterday, I realized while in bed that I completely forgot to vlog. I'd been trying to keep on my WTF Wednesdays schedule. I was so good about it during my breakdancing dancing phase. But now, during scuba diving pool training, I've been helter-skelter all over the place, as reflected by the weather. Partly why is because I do like to vlog in this training area, but it is a public area. So I'm strategic. I try to pick a block of time that I know I'll be alone. That's sometimes hard to predict. To be fair, I've been relatively good at it, as in I've never had an incident where someone's walked in even while I was in the pool. But that's been more luck than anything else. I think today I'm still gonna just dry land vlog and vlog my pool progress some other time, if at all. In the rest of this season, I'm thinking that this facility will close eventually, but we've pushed later than normal. Maybe they're making up for lost time. During the pandemic, the pool season closed for 2020. Maybe they're making up for shit. People are still going strong. Fewer people, but still people. I'm one of these people. I can count on my one hand how many are disciplined enough to continue in the pool when the weather's changed. Of course, during summertime, we had many local children having at it, having their fun. But now that the weather has made a turn for the worse permanently, we only have a couple of people. Maybe the other people are training for things too. That's my guess. At the very least, I'm pool training, and I'm continuing to do so. Because in the back of my mind, I think that the skill is going to be useful. I really do. How it's going to be useful might be in the immediate application of scuba diving, because that's what I'm training. But it could be in other adventure endeavors. For example, space. I've mentioned the space race often in this vlog, and I'll mention it again, because the space cowboy billionaires have been in the forefront. Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, and Elon Musk. I only slot Elon Musk at the end because his adventure endeavors are too expensive for me to even consider in this lifetime. But I think within my lifetime, a suborbital rocket up or fly up either through Blue Origin or Virgin Galactic is possible. What limits me is supply and demand at this point in time. The demand is high and the supply is low. Obviously, in those situations, people with way more financial resources and clout are going to be up there first. For example, Jeff Bezos himself. As much as he seems to be hated by other people, I have respect for his sense of adventure. He executed on his dream, and maybe in the middle of it he had to earn all the money that he needed to execute on that dream. One thing is to rocket up to space. Another is to fund your own rocket to do it. That's what Jeff Bezos did. In some ways, some might consider that as a midlife crisis. I've titled it as such, but I think it's actually just more of a lifelong dream. I respect that. And I respect the fact that if I do rocket up to space, when I rocket up to space, he might play a part in that. His rocket infrastructure might be the one that I take up there. Who knows? I've alluded to earlier that I'm closer than people might think of someone like me. I just had my leverage methods, and it's in the cards. It's in the cards. What's out of the cards is cost, and that's always going to be a problem for me. But I also take that as a specific type of adventure. I mentioned last time Jeff Bezos and also Will Smith. Will Smith's trailer for Welcome to Earth has been a fucking punch in the face. Mostly because it's been both affirming and aspirational. How could I, as a simple, complicated girl from Edmonton, have achieved 75% of what Will Smith achieved in his trailer? He's trekked volcanoes. So have I. He's experienced that fiery red hot lava. He's experienced the visceral smell of the rotten sulfur. He's experienced the byproduct heat. It's actually really warm enough to toast things. I would have brought some marshmallows as a fun exercise, but that couple of times that I've trekked a volcano, I've done it in different ways. I've mentioned the fiery lava, I've mentioned the bubbling mud pots, but another thing that's related to the fiery lava is volcano boarding in Nicaragua. Volcano boarding is you being in exactly close proximity to a still active volcano and boarding down the side of it. Despite lack of the fiery lava all up in your face, there's still that heat where you could have brought some marshmallows to toast, but obviously because I was volcano boarding, those marshmallows would have probably messed up with that activity, so I left it out. But back to the point, Will Smith has observed the wildebeest migration. So have I. Will Smith has deep sea dived with the majestic animals of the ocean. So have I. Some aspirational aspects of his trailer were the submarine submersible. That's something I might look forward to. But the point would be, people often think that it's only Jeff Bezos and Will Smith that can do these things because they're rich and because they have clout. The funny thing that they've both mentioned is that the more clout you have, the more people give you free things. Except in the case of Jeff Bezos, where he actually has to fund his own rocket because that was part of his lifelong dream. But how did I execute? That's part of the magic of adventure and budget adventure. Maybe it's one of those things where if you're never invited, you'll shun it anyways. For example, a number of what you would call beer-less celebrities have always joked about how the Met Gala is a fucking waste of time. It's a fucking gorging, overly important Hollywood self-pat on the back. But in the other breath, they're never invited. So it's easy to have a negative opinion. It's easy to poo-poo it because they never invited you. This could be the same thing. I'm self-aware enough to know that I think the bougie, luxurious life is a sham. Maybe because I've never really lived it consistently day to day. I've lived it for free when it was free. I've had many circumstances where I've been able to live the high life because I had opportunities that people gave me. But outside of those opportunities, I've mostly made my way because I've just been extremely innovative in how to stretch a budget. That's how I've done it. That's how I've done it. I'm happy that I've done something new in that space because obviously Jeff Bezos and Will Smith do their midlife crises better than me. They have more money, more resources. They can build their own rocket ships and rocket up to space. They can convince National Geographic to film their adventure exploits with the best camera equipment available. Those camera rigs that they used to capture Will Smith's submarine submersible adventure were probably in the hundreds of thousands, maybe even up to the millions. That's how expensive they are. But both of them have the benefit of having their exploits inspire art about them as well. That's actually the second part of the loop. That's the closed part of the loop that I think is the most important thing for me as well. What's important is that the entire circuit of an adventure has to, in my opinion, end with artistic creativity that's about the adventure, or at least inspired by the adventure. In my case, it's going to be inspired and a direct output of the adventure. I'm editing my rockumentary. And now that I'm asshole deep in that editing process, I'm happy with what I was able to achieve without having that specific goal. For example, Will Smith obviously pitched, or National Geographic pitched him on this idea. Am I mixing everything up? Is it Discovery or National Geographic? It's National Geographic. Okay, I think I've got that right. In any case, whatever. You can look it up. They knew what they were doing, so they had a specific mindset in how to film. They maybe had a script, but at the very least, they knew what shots were, because Will Smith has an entire professional team. That team is tasked with filming those epic, gorgeous shots. When I was filming, I think maybe subconsciously I always knew that I was going to go in this direction of making a rockumentary. But I never let that overwhelm my adventure. Because in actuality, when you're having the adventure itself should take precedence over anything else. That includes taking precedence over filmmaking. So what I was able to do was still have the filmmaking turn out a lot better than I had expected. Part of the reason why it turned out better than I expected is because I just followed the rules of the game of Neil Strauss, the New York Times bestselling author. Volume, volume, volume. This is the player's hand guide. I read that book, the book on how to pick up women. But I myself have never intended to pick up women, or men for that matter. I've always been my own person, doing my own thing. Why then would I spend my time, my valuable time, to read a book like that? I think to give men credit, in a certain sense, the most motivated motherfucking species on Earth is a species that wants to fuck. I mean, it just is, in a certain sense. At least, that's the example that comes to mind immediately. I knew, though, of myself, I ain't want to fuck, but I want that motivation to do the things I want. And I also want that motivation to know what those things are. So I read that book. And one of the concepts that stuck out to me was volume. Just volume. just doing a lot of things, a lot of throwing shit at the wall, Jackson Pollock style, and observing what sticks. But you have to have the guts, the balls, and the reckless abandon to just throw shit at the wall. So for me, filmmaking was what I called the volume exercise. Instead of worrying about setting up shots, I would just film in volume, film in volume, film in volume, to the point where I'd run out of SD card space. That epic bush camping, where I observed the wildebeest migration in Africa, I used the concept of volume while utilizing the social media platforms. So starting in 2016 already, I'd basically been using live vlogging, the live functions, as an SD card substitute. Because what happens is that when you go live on any of the platforms, they record a high quality copy for you to access later without having to take up your SD space. Now, of course, with my increase in my filmmaking abilities, I've now invested in more SD space. But sometimes when you're in a pinch, you'd rather record something than nothing. And that's why I've developed the live habit too, because it's basically nothing stops you. Nothing technological stops you anymore. When you're feeling the flow, or even if you're feeling no flow, just record it. Volume, 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 volume. And that volume has paid loads in dividends, because I now know, even without the conscious effort to have the shot for the documentary, the rockumentary, I have one, and I have an entire series. I have multi-part series, and I'm proud of the camera work that we could muster in basically a byproduct manner. All of this video was just a byproduct of the adventure. I've never adventured with the intent of making something, but I'm so happy that I'm actually able to make something out of it, because I just valued the volume mentality. And I'm continuing to follow that volume mentality, because week by week, I've now had a pandemic catalog of all of my feelings, of all of my roller coaster. And I'm probably going to integrate a lot of this period into the rockumentary as well, because it's a part of my journey. I think it's also a part of the collective journey that people can relate to. Something that's been interesting about these midlife crises is that you'd think people like Jeff Bezos, Will Smith, or me would exceedingly suffer during a time where we've been limited by things beyond our control. Trust me, despite what people think about Jeff Bezos having free reign over everything and everyone, something that surprised me was the FAA's definition of an astronaut. Right after Jeff Bezos came back from his record-setting rocket to space, the FAA changed their definition of an astronaut, leaving the definition precarious for both Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson. At least my interpretation is that they are precariously maybe astronauts. If you were to ask me, if anyone's asking, I actually think that both of them are still astronauts by the new FAA definition. In essence, given that we have a new space tourist industry, they had to keep the integrity of the word astronaut. Because, for example, as an airplane passenger, are you a pilot? As a cruise passenger, are you a captain? You're something else. And we have to know what these different people are. So I think the colloquial and maybe even technical definition of an astronaut is someone who actually functionally does something in space. And I think by the definition, both Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson are still astronauts. In Jeff Bezos' case, from what I understand, he actually holds his name as a co-patent on the technology in the New Shepard rocket that rocketed him up. So that definitely qualifies. Richard Branson had less of a technical contribution, but he still was evaluating something on that rocket. I mean, spaceflight that he took up on his own spaceflight machine? Plane? So, in any case, I think by even the new definitions, they're both still astronauts. But people have been contending back and forth because there's commercial use of the word, there's governmental use of the word, there's actually many, many fine-tooth comb things that people have been debating back and forth. Even I am only doing all of this at a surface level. Does the title of astronaut matter to me, personally? I'll be real with you, it has caused me to change my mind about what the real thrust of my adventure lust is. Okay. Adventure is a very broad term. Adventure is also a broad, self-defined term. To me, I could be having an adventure right now, live on camera, just by being able to essentially public speak for as long as I need to, often for hours and hours. That's an adventure. A lot of people have commented on how I have some gift of gab, but gift of gab to the nth degree, because every week, while a lot of people on social media are extremely polished, I'm raw. I'm a raw diamond. I'm just going. I'm lucky that I even call back to my headline at all on the vlog, because often I come up with headlines right before I vlog, but without the actual intent to necessarily address the headline. I just come up with something snappy and write it out. But by the time I vlog, I might have already mentally moved on from that space. This time, what I'm trying to do is at least give myself a cue. I want to call back to the headline because the headline's important. It relates to how I'm feeling and actually reminds me what I want to address. Because as I've reminded many, many times, these vlogs are really for me to remind myself. When I speak in generalities, when I use words like everybody, I'm really speaking just to myself. If other people, other viewers want to join in, they've joined in, but I'm really tailoring these vlogs to be maximally useful to me. So to be maximally useful, I'm addressing the headline because that's the thing I want to address. What is adventure to me? Adventure is self-defined. Space is an adventure because I define it as an adventure. Does the title of astronaut make the adventure? I think it's a nice thing to have. I think astronaut wings would be icing on an already delicious cake. When I skydived in Vancouver, the vendor messed some shit up, and I asked them, hey, just as token to me, do you have anything that you could give? They gave me a pin, a skydiving wings pin. I still have that pin. Actually, maybe I'll look for that pin. I have it somewhere. I know I do. That pin means something to me. First of all, it's always good to ask. That's the mentality that I've always had. A lot of times, why I get what I want is simply because I asked. But more of the times, I'm persuasive in what I ask for, because you can ask a person, you can ask a billionaire for $1 billion, why would they want to give it to you? So, while I always am openly an asker, I create a value proposition too. Okay? So, if I'm asking myself, what's my value proposition for myself? It's that I want to feel good and I want to have fun. That sounds like a very childish approach to life, but that's what I've always thought was at least the way for me to be happy. I think all too often we extol this cult of adulting. And what does adulting mean, to be honest? Why do you have to be some sort of functional member of society? I think all you have to do is bare minimum be a legal member of society, as in follow the laws loosely as much as you can with related to personal body and property of others. And I think once you've done that bare minimum, everything else is really up to you. This is a concept I've explored many times, and I'm going to explore it many more times. In some ways, the way that I live, I've been asked, is it isolating? I think isolating is a way to look at it, but it's the wrong way. I have to figure out what the right way is, though. Because I interact with people, and I think, from what I understand, the interactions on other people's end is still rich in nature. They gain a lot out of interacting with me, but I'm always clear that I interact with the world the way I want to, and that's part of my adventure as well. So, summarizing, everything all at once, nothing at once. I'm still on this adventurous journey, and I do find some commonalities with people that might on the surface look very different from me. I mentioned Jeff Bezos a lot. I've mentioned Will Smith a lot recently. These people seem like they're polar opposites. But really the only difference is that they just have more resources with which to execute on their midlife crises, or otherwise known as their adventures. I have to be creative in a different sense, but to be fair to them, they had to be creative too, because they started from somewhere as well. They just happen to have had outsized success that sometimes people poo-poo on them. I think it's been in vogue to poo-poo on the rich. I've always thought that the rich were just people with more resources. They also had to go on a journey. They also had to figure out what they wanted. And in some ways, I think I just take from them the positive parts of their story. They have other negatives, I have negatives. Everyone has negative sides to their personalities, to their stories, that you could also focus on. But at this point, I'm focusing on what's helpful to me. What's helpful to me is that they've done what they've done. What's helpful to me is that they've even created the art that they've created. Will Smith in particular, again, that National Geographic trailer of Welcome to Earth has made me actually want to stream that fucking shit. I've never really been moved by any series so far, but that might be one. So big ups to him. Okay, now, I really should start training. Yes, even in this dank cold, the struggle's real. It continues. Okay. Time to start.